Chapter 28. Cole. Al, ping Cara's phone. She may not be answering, but she never goes anywhere without it. Hopefully it will show her location. Albright, call the B&B and see if anyone's seen her. Givens, get me anything you can on Bradley Malone. I want to know if he owns any businesses out here. Jordan began barking out orders as soon as Cole delivered the information that he couldn't get Cara on the phone. Stone entered from his office, and Jordan updated him on the intel. "Have we identified the shooter from the hospital yet?" Stone added after he was caught up. "Not yet, sir," Al spoke up. "But I've got Cara's phone. It's at the old heating and cooling warehouse on Wabash Avenue." "All right, let's suit up. Givens, I want you to stay and keep looking into Malone. I want more than a cufflink to pin on him, especially considering he's military." Makenna stepped forward. "I know we haven't met, sir, but my name is Captain Drake of the Woodville Police Department. What can I do to help?" Stone looked her over for a moment, as if deciding if he could trust her. "Stay with Givens. I want the ID on the shooter. Hopefully we can link the two." His eyes turned to Cole, and Cole stepped forward. "Cole Davenport, sir. Criminal investigator for Clarksville. I'd like to come." "Absolutely not," Stone roared. "This team is highly trained. Inexperience is dangerous." Cole clenched his jaw. There was no way he was sitting this out. If Cara was in trouble, he was going to be there. As if sensing his thoughts, Jordan stepped forward. "Captain, he's been helping Cara with this case from the beginning. Plus, he's met Malone and a few of the other players. It might be a good idea to bring him along." Stone's expression grew even fiercer, if that was possible, but after exchanging a glare with Jordan, he let out a sigh and relented. "Fine, but he stays at the back and follows orders." He shot the last two words directly at Cole, who nodded. He didn't care what orders he had to follow, as long as he was there to help save Cara. 20 minutes later, Cole adjusted his bulletproof vest as he stepped out of the car and joined Jordan and the others. This time, Al took the lead. "Okay, there are 2 entrances to the warehouse." She tapped on her cell phone, and Cole leaned closer to Jordan to see the schematics they all had on their phones. "Al and Jordan, you take Cole and enter at this closest entrance," Stone said. "Albright and I will go around to the other side to head them off. Now, we don't expect there are any innocents besides Cara inside, but keep your wits about you. Flashbangs as much as possible. Let's try to keep the body count down and bring these guys to justice." The men and Al nodded, and then Stone and Albright jogged out of sight. Jordan turned to Cole. "You ready for this?" Not in the least. But there was no way Cole was saying that out loud. His throat was parched, and his heartbeat thudded in his ears, but he nodded. He and Cara were not officially involved, but there was no way he was waiting outside and getting the news, good or bad, secondhand. He gave Jordan a curt nod and fell into step behind him. Al took the lead, and after scouting the area for cameras, she opened the door and stepped inside. It took a few blinks for Cole's eyes to adjust to the light. They were in a dimly lit hallway. He pulled his gun, enjoying the heavy feeling in his hand. It was just a weapon, and no guarantee of survival, but it had saved him more than once. The building was quiet as they made their way down the hallway. Cole hoped they weren't too late. Visions of Cara's dead body floated across his mind, and he squeezed his eyes shut to remove them. "God, please let her be okay," he whispered softly. Light appeared ahead of them, and Al paused. She held up a hand for them to stop as she scoped around the corner. Cole held his breath as he waited. "I see Cara," she whispered. "She's tied up to a chair, and some large guy is guarding her." "That's probably Malone's driver. I'm fairly certain he's also his bodyguard." Cole was glad he was able to supply some helpful information. "Okay, I'll throw a flashbang. Jordan and I will run in first to neutralize the driver and anyone else who might be around. You get Cara." Cole nodded and stepped behind Jordan. Al threw the flashbang. There was a loud noise, followed by a bright flash of light, and then chaos ensued. Gunshots sounded, but unconcerned for his own safety, Cole followed Al and Jordan into the larger room. The acrid smell of smoke burned his throat and stung his eyes, but he made his way over to Cara, who was still very much alive. "Malone's in the other room with the terrorists. They still have some of the virus." "Stone and Albright came in the other way. I'm sure they'll find them," Cole said, as he holstered his gun and pulled out a knife to cut her ropes. When she was free, he grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the entrance. She dug her heels in, halting their escape. "We have to help them." Cole turned to her and found her eyes. There was no time for this, but he knew he would have to say it to get her to leave. "You aren't armed, and I'm not losing you. They've got this. Now come on." A flood of emotions crossed over her face, but a smile won out in the end. "You can't lose me?" Cole returned the smile and shook his head. Of course, that's what she focused on. "Can we talk about this later? Like maybe when we aren't in danger of getting shot?" Her eyes twinkled, but she squeezed his hand and ran with him out of the building. Cole didn't stop until they were back to the cars. He had no idea how long Jordan and the others would take, but he felt this was at least a safe enough distance from the warehouse that they could stop for a minute. He turned Cara to face him and placed his hands on her cheek. "You stubborn woman. Why did you come here alone?" Anger at the actions that had put her in danger conflicted with the relief he felt that she was okay. Her eyes widened and filled with emotion. "I'm sorry. I was just going to follow Bruce to see if I could find anything out. I didn't know he was leading me into a trap. How did you even find me?" "McKenna and I did some research on Malone and found pictures of him wearing the cufflinks. I tried to call and warn you, but when you didn't pick up, I knew you were in trouble. Al pinged your phone, and the rest is history." He ran his thumb across her cheek as if to assure himself she was real and safe. "I can't believe Stone let you come." Her words were quiet and breathy, and her eyes bored into his soul. "There was no way I was staying, Cara." His husky tone declared his desire to kiss her, but he didn't care. She was alive, she was in his arms, and if he had his way, that's where she would be staying in the future. "Because you couldn't lose me?" It was a question, but not one that needed a verbal answer. Her gaze fell to his lips, and he knew that the truest way to convince her of his feelings would be with actions and not words. As his lips pressed against hers, she leaned toward him. Her hands pulled at his hair as her body melded into his. The wall that had been so carefully constructed around his heart after his fiancée was killed exploded into a million pieces. It had been years since he had considered letting love in again, but in less than a week, Cara had ignited the fuse, and the desire burned within him now. Ahem. A throat cleared behind them, and reluctantly Cole pulled away from Cara. "Sorry to interrupt you two." A light pink colored Jordan's cheek, and he appeared unable to look either of them in the eyes. "We've apprehended Malone and 3 other men. Stone and Albright are clearing the building, but I wanted to make sure you both had gotten out all right. I see that you have." Cara stepped forward and threw her arms around her embarrassed friend. "Thank you for coming for me, Jordan. For everything, really." He nodded. "I'll call for backup to help with transport. Why don't you take my car and go back to the B&B? You could both use a little rest." "Not yet," Cara said, shaking her head. "I need to get to the hospital and let Nick know what I found out. I'm sure it will help him cure the rest of the patients." "And we should probably check on McKenna," Cole added. Jordan shook his head. "I'll take care of McKenna. You stop at the hospital and then rest. That's an order." "Yes, sir." As she popped a salute, a wide smile filled Cara's face, and Cole thought she had never looked more beautiful. He decided he would do whatever it took to make sure that smile remained.